Alright guys, so here we have a pretty massive lacing, and before we can get started with the lacing, we have to sand this down so that the two subfloors are on the same plane.
All right, so we just finished up with the subfloor prep. Everything's on the same plane and we're ready to install, but the first thing we need to do is put down our vapor barrier. We're using Aquabar B, and this is going to ensure that the moisture content stays consistent year round, which is especially important when you're using a wood like hickory because it's very volatile with moisture changes throughout the seasons.
Alright, so today we're going to show you a quick step-by-step guide on how you would lace in new flooring to existing flooring. And it most definitely isn't like this. Alright, so the first step is going to be removing these shorter boards. And we like to slide them out using a cat's paw and a mallet, or cut them out using a circular saw and an oscillating tool.
So if you've ever installed a hardwood floor before, you know that you want to create somewhat of a randomized pattern. Well, a general rule we like to follow is to have every joint be 2 board widths away. We're working with 3 1/4 material here, so we want to keep each joint 6 1/2 inches away. So the next closest joint would be right there. Another thing you want to avoid is H patterns. That means a joint that is 1 board removed, we don't want it lined up. It catches the eye and it looks out of place. The last thing you want to avoid is any type of stair step. So that would be something like this, where it is an equal distance amongst 2 to 3 joints and you're stepping it down like a staircase. All right, now that we have everything laced out, we're ready to start installing. The first thing we need to do is set a line. To do that, we're going to take a chalk line and line it up with the existing seam here and go as far back out as we can so we know it's perfectly straight. Now that we have the reference line in place, we're going to use the longest boards we can find and use those to set our first row. We're going to glue and nail these in place, and then once those are set, we'll take pieces of scrap wood and use them as cleats to support the back of the line. All right, now we're ready to install. When we put these first few rows on, we want to tap them in just enough so that the gaps tighten up. We don't want to whack the flooring nailer because it might throw off our line a little bit. And with this giant lace in, that would be a huge issue.
We're going to have to fight pretty hard to tap some of these boards in, so I'd recommend using a scrap piece of flooring as a pounding block so you don't ruin your wood. And you're also going to want to use some glue. You can see we haven't glued all the way out to the end though. You're going to find that if you do that, it's just going to get pushed into a pile and it's going to shoot up out the top. So let's speak hypothetical and say, we try to match this floor, but it just doesn't turn out quite right. It's a little bit off. This is pretty common. The old wood is oftentimes a little darker, the new wood's lighter, and you don't know what part of the country it came from. Something you can do to combat this is stain the floor. Now, you'll see in a minute whether or not we need to do that.
Alright, so we just threw down a quick stain sample. The customer is leaning more towards a natural color, but we went ahead and threw down some of our most popular stain colors. Alright, so here we have Exoblock, Special Walnut, Jacobine, Spice Brown, Nutmeg, Early American, Provincial, and Golden Oak. So we finished up the lacing, and you can see it turned out amazing. So now we can get on to sanding and blend it all together.
This pre-finished floor didn't look like it had much character in it when we got here. Now, if you're not experienced, you might think, oh, well, we need a select grade of hickory to match this. But what you're going to find is when we sand this down, it comes to life. So we put in a character grade here, and it matches perfectly. So now we're just going to fill the little knots in the character with some epoxy. We're going to do our final sanding, and it's going to be time to seal this thing up.
But right now we're applying Exoblock sealer. After that, we're going to apply 2 top coats of Green Star satin. So the reason we use a sealer before we put our polyurethane down is because this bonds with the wood a lot better. And when we go to put on our polyurethane, we won't have issues with it peeling, and it allows the polyurethane to kind of flow a little bit more evenly and have a nice smooth coat.
It's the day after the second coat, and man, does this floor look amazing. We're waiting to put on the final coat until the builders are done doing their work. But this is basically what it'll look like. Let's see how that giant lacing turned out. You can see there's not even a hint of difference between the new install and the old install. And this lacing is about as good as it gets. There's no gaps, and it follows the old flooring perfectly. I'd also like to say, you probably can't tell through the screen, but our efforts to repair the subfloor really paid off, as this floor is extremely flat now. Of course, the new install looks gorgeous, but most surprising to us was the refinish. We could not have imagined the gorgeous character that was hidden underneath that dense yellow finish. Thank you for watching, and if you like this video or love this floor, you might want to check out some of our other videos.